Welcome to The Deep Dive. We're the podcast where we really get into these complex stories, pull out the key facts, and help you make sense of it all. Today, we're heading into a place that, well, it should be about safety and healing above all else, a hospital. You picture these places, everyone working towards one goal, making people better, families trust their loved ones there completely, implicitly. You trust the professionals, the uniforms, the whole system. But sometimes that trust gets absolutely shattered. And today we're examining a really unsettling case, Richard Angelo, often called the Angel of Death. A horrible label, isn't it? Given to healthcare workers who betray everything they stand for, intentionally harming patients. Angelo was a nurse on Long Island back in the mid-'80s. And he took this very human impulse, wanting to be seen as a hero, and twisted it into something truly dark. Deception, harm, tragedy. So our mission today is to dive into the sources we have, explore how this kind of ambition can go so terribly wrong, and what lessons we can actually learn from it. Okay, so let's start with the man himself, Richard Angelo, born in 1962. His childhood.
Pretty unremarkable from everything we've read. Yeah, people who knew him back then said he was polite, quiet, studious even. Seemed genuinely interested in medicine, wanted to help people, wear that healer's uniform. He wasn't like some obvious outcast or anything, just blended in. You probably wouldn't have noticed him. By 1987, he's a licensed nurse.
And this is where it gets really fascinating and, frankly, quite disturbing. Angelo's reasons, his motives, they weren't the typical things we see in criminal cases. Usually it's money or revenge or maybe deep-seated hatred. But with Angelo, it was way more unusual, almost perverse. He apparently craved admiration. He desperately wanted his colleagues to see him as a hero, a rescuer. And his method for getting that admiration, it was chillingly calculated. He'd give patients certain substances, things that would cause sudden severe respiratory problems or other major issues. Then he'd be the one to rush in, play the hero, revive them. His twisted logic was that this would make him look like this brilliant, skilled nurse who could pull people back from the brink.
It's hard to grasp.
Yeah.
How does that basic human desire for recognition, wanting to do good work, get so warped? Expert psychologically, what's going on there? How does that understandable ambition turn into that?
Yeah.
What separates his pathological need from, say, the healthy desire for respect most good nurses or doctors probably feel?
That's a really crucial question. And it hits on why this case is so complex, psychologically speaking. Look, most people in caring professions, they do want to be effective. They want to help. And yes, getting recognized for good work feels good. That's normal. But with Angelo, it seems this morphed into something else, maybe what some call a hero complex. It's like a compulsive need, almost an addiction to being seen as the ultimate savior. Psychologically, you might look at underlying insecurities, maybe a fragile sense of self-worth that desperately needed constant validation from the outside. And a hospital, especially in ICU, it's a high-stakes place. Life and death are right there. So the opportunity to be a hero is always present. For Angelo, it looks like the praise he got from successful saves, the attention, it became this really powerful, addictive feedback loop. But the terrifying part is he couldn't just wait for real emergencies. He felt compelled to create them. His sense of self-worth got tangled up in manufacturing crises, not just responding to them. He completely ignored his basic ethical duty.
And the setting for all this was primarily the night shift. He worked at Good Samaritan Hospital, Westleep, Long Island. That was in 1987. Now, anyone who's worked in a hospital knows the night shift is different. It's usually quieter, fewer staff around, less direct supervision, maybe.
Exactly. And that environment unintentionally gave Angelo the privacy and, frankly, the opportunity he needed to carry out these actions without being immediately noticed. He could move around more freely.
So while he was doing this, did people start noticing anything? Any patterns emerging?
They did, but it was incredibly difficult to connect the dots at first. What colleagues started seeing was this disturbing trend. Patients who were stable, and that's key, stable patients would suddenly just crash. We're talking sudden, severe breathing problems, sometimes paralysis that couldn't be explained, or abrupt heart issues. These emergencies seemed almost random. They affected different kinds of patients, young, old. There wasn't always a clear medical reason for why they were deteriorating so fast. And if you think about how hospitals work, especially busy ones, it shows just how hard it can be to spot something like this immediately. You're in a high-pressure environment, things happen fast, every emergency feels urgent, right? You're not immediately thinking, is one of my colleagues causing this?
Right. Your instinct is to deal with the crisis in front of you, not suspect the person working next to you.
Precisely. Staff are trained to save lives, not to be detectives looking for malice within their own team. The sheer number of events in, say, an ICU can create so much noise that a sinister pattern gets masked. Plus, there's this inherent trust. You have to trust your colleagues to function, questioning them isn't the default.
Yeah, just imagine working there then. The stress, the constant emergencies.
Yeah.
How easy would it be to just think, oh, another tragic complication, or this patient was sicker than we thought, instead of thinking the unthinkable that someone was deliberately doing this? It says a lot about the chaos, but also about that necessary trust.
Absolutely. And think about the psychological toll on the rest of the staff. They're fighting to save these patients, facing these baffling losses, maybe even doubting their own skills.
That must have been awful.
It would be immense. Constant stress, confusion, maybe even burnout, all while the actual source of the problem is right there, hidden in plain sight. It's like a form of psychological warfare against the whole unit.
So what was the breaking point? How did it finally come out? The moment everything changed seems to be October 1987. And that's where a patient named Richard Code comes into the story. Code was 68, a Vietnam vet. He was in the hospital for something relatively minor, actually a urinary tract infection. He was stable, recovering, not someone you'd expect to have a sudden crisis. But then he got an injection from Angelo, and almost immediately he had this sudden, terrifying reaction.
And this is the absolute turning point. Because Richard Code, unlike maybe some other patients who might have been too sedated or too ill, he remained conscious. Conscious enough to know something was terribly wrong. He clearly described feeling paralyzed. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe properly. He felt like his diaphragm just stopped working. That testimony was gold dust for investigators. Because it wasn't just another mysterious medical event logged in a chart. It was a patient, conscious and lucid, directly saying, "This happened right after that nurse gave me that injection." Code pointed the finger.
Wow. So one person able to speak up, being conscious enough.
Yeah.
That's what it took to unravel this whole thing.
It was absolutely critical. Without Richard Code being able to articulate what happened, who knows how long Angelo might have continued? Think about it. Many potential victims might have been elderly, already critically ill, maybe on ventilators, heavily medicated. They couldn't communicate.
Right, their decline could easily be explained away.
Exactly. Their pre-existing conditions provided cover. But Code was relatively healthy, fully awake. He gave investigators that crucial first-person account. It provided a concrete event linked directly to Angelo, and that allowed them to go back, look at the records with fresh eyes, and suddenly see the pattern they'd missed. Suspicion became solid evidence.
So once Code made his report, things moved fast. Yes, very fast.
Yeah.
The police got involved immediately. They started surveillance right inside Good Samaritan Hospital, zeroed in on Angelo, and that led to his arrest, also in October 1987. You can only imagine the shockwaves.
Yeah.
West Islip, Long Island, the whole medical community. The idea that a nurse, someone meant to heal, could do this, it was just incomprehensible for so many people.
And when the police questioned him, Angelo actually confessed. He admitted giving patients drugs like Pavulon.
That's the muscle relaxant, right? Paralyzes breathing.
That's the one. And also lidocaine, which can dangerously affect the heart. He admitted using them. But his explanation was chilling. He insisted he never meant to kill anyone. He just wanted to create emergency so he could then rush in, be the hero, get the praise from his colleagues. It's this bizarre sort of detachment, almost framing himself as a victim of his own need for validation.
But the reality was devastating.
Utterly devastating. Investigators, looking back at records, autopsies, patient charts, they came to believe he'd harmed over 30 patients, and several had died directly because of what he did. His confession just highlighted how disconnected he was from the lethal results of his so-called heroics.
Then came the trial in 1989. Huge media attention, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. It was held in Suffolk County, and it was a major story. The prosecution, led by the DA James Catterson Jr., they laid out the case meticulously. They argued Angelo systematically abused his position of trust. They had patient charts showing these sudden declines right after his shift started, toxicology reports finding unprescribed drugs.
And, crucially, Richard Code's testimony.
Exactly. Code's testimony was powerful. They also brought in medical experts to show that these events just weren't medically plausible as natural occurrences. What was the defense's strategy?
Well, they didn't really deny his actions. Given the confession, their focus was on his intent. They argued he never actually intended to cause death. They tried to paint him as someone deeply troubled, driven by this warped need for approval, maybe lacking true malice in the classic sense.
But intent versus impact.
Precisely. The court and the jury had to weigh his stated motive against the undeniable tragic consequences. They heard about the deaths, the suffering, and the verdict. Guilty. Convicted on multiple counts, murder, assault, reckless endangerment, the sentence was heavy, 61 years to life.
Which meant he wouldn't even be eligible for parole for at least 50 years. Effectively, a life sentence.
So that legal outcome really grappled with that idea, didn't it? Intent versus impact.
It really did. Even if Angelo claimed his motive wasn't murder, his actions directly caused death. He knew those drugs were dangerous. The conviction sent a strong message. You're responsible for the foreseeable consequences of your actions, especially when you violate such a fundamental position of trust. Your internal narrative about wanting to be a hero doesn't negate the harm.
It's such a stark reminder for everyone listening, isn't it? Consequences matter hugely, regardless of claimed intentions, especially when power and care are involved.
Exactly right. And Angelo's case, well, it's still studied today. Criminology, psychology, medical ethics, they all look at it because that motive, the desire for admiration, was so different. It wasn't the typical serial killer profile, yet the outcome was just as deadly. It really forced a spotlight onto that hero complex idea in healthcare settings, how a positive drive can become twisted into something incredibly dangerous. It made experts reconsider the psychological vulnerabilities that can exist even in trained professionals.
And the impact on hospitals themselves, you mentioned it was a wake-up call. What specifically changed?
Oh, the changes were significant and pretty widespread. Hospitals everywhere tightened up procedures, especially around medication control for high-risk drugs like the ones Angelo used.
Like Pavlon.
Yes, drugs like Pavulon, potent cardiac medications, sedatives. They call them scheduled drugs. Controls got much tighter. Think more frequent inventory checks, stricter counts, sometimes needing 2 nurses to sign off on administration. Secure drug carts, better tracking systems. But it wasn't just about the drugs. There was also a bigger push for better patient monitoring, more sophisticated alarms in ICUs, maybe more frequent checks of vital signs, and, crucially, improving how hospitals investigate unexplained events. Setting up better systems for reporting incidents, ensuring they get looked into seriously, not just dismissed.
And encouraging staff to speak up.
Absolutely. Fostering a culture where staff feel safe reporting suspicious behavior from colleagues without fear of backlash. That cultural shift towards vigilance is key.
Which brings us to the broader issue, public trust. This case must have deeply shaken people's faith in medical institutions.
It definitely did. It highlighted just how fragile that trust is. We assume ethical conduct. We have to. When that's violated so profoundly, it's deeply unsettling.
So how do institutions even begin to rebuild that trust? And what kind of vigilance is needed now to stop this happening again?
Rebuilding trust is slow work. It takes more than just new rules. It requires transparency, actively showing commitment to patient safety, communicating those safeguards. Within the medical field itself, it means constant reinforcement of ethics, creating environments where asking questions is okay, and acknowledging that no system is perfect. Vigilance isn't a one-off fix. It's ongoing. Continuous audits, education, making sure the culture truly puts patients first, always. But Angelo's story, sadly, it lingers. It comes up in true crime and ethics classes. His name is linked with those other angel of death cases, a constant grim reminder of what can happen when ambition curdles and trust is broken.
It really is a cautionary tale, isn't it? Ambition without ethics. Someone wanting to be a healer turning into a symbol of the ultimate betrayal. Angelo craved being a hero. But chasing that warped admiration, he destroyed the very meaning of healing. His story tells you, starkly, that even in places we trust the most, vigilance is always needed. And that line between hero and villain, sometimes it's disturbingly thin. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about. What does this story make you consider about trust in any professional setting? And about the hidden power, maybe even the danger, of the desire for recognition in your own life or your own profession?
If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into more cases like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like the video if you found the story compelling, and share it with your friends and family who might be interested in true crime and mysteries. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with all our latest content and join a growing community of curious minds exploring the most fascinating cases. Click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything.